This is the Todd Capital Millionaire Podcast. This
Mhm.
is episode 131. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Todd Millionaire, founder and director of the Todd Capital Investment Club, also the founder of Todd Acquisitions, also the founder of Todd Capital Cuts and Todd Capital Vending, doing a lot of really cool things, working with some great people and helping do it as a community. This is episode 131. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of successful African-American business owners and investors so that people can hear that business and investing are the true keys to financial success and see that it's happening in real life. Thank you all for tuning in. Today, we have a special guest, Mr. Jullien. He is a multifamily real estate investor. He's a very educated and qualified individual. He has connections with Dr. Boyce Watkins. He's also he's worked with Jay Morrison, and he just has a huge presence on the internet. He's sharing some unconventional, I guess would kind of be conventional wisdom, but some unconventional thoughts, things that are kind of foreign to a lot of people. So I kind of want to go through a lot of those different topics with you guys. But welcome to the show, man.
So glad to be here, man. Thank you for the invitation, man. I appreciate you and the work and the energy and the messages that you're putting out. So grateful to be able to contribute to the conversation.
So can you tell us a little bit what life was like growing up for you?
Yeah, man. I'm the son of two doctors, so I had a lot of privilege growing up. But doctors, while that was in alignment with the Cosby Show of having two African American professionals as heads of household, my parents got divorced when I was one, and because they were doctors and they were still trading time for money, they were middle class, but they weren't wealthy. You know what I'm saying? So I had a great upbringing. They provided everything for me. But they weren't always as present as I would have hoped growing up. I had friends who, like our baseball coach was the community accountant. My soccer coach was the minister. So I saw other people who are entrepreneurs being able to make a living and be fully present. But I do recognize now as I've aged that my parents were in emergency services. Like they were literally saving lives. So I understand and they love what they did. I understand it now, but as a child, I didn't fully appreciate some of the career choice, right? So I sought to navigate differently. People thought that I was going to be a doctor too growing up, and I just knew that wasn't the path for me. That didn't sit right with me to continue to, even though they were paid well, continuously trading time for money indefinitely. I just didn't feel like that was my path, and so I deviated from that, and that's kind of what led me to where I am today.
So you went a traditional route academically.
Yeah.
So what was the goal there? What was the aim there? You're like 18 maybe, and then you start going to college, going to grad school, all that stuff. What was the aim?
Yeah. So, when I was a freshman in college at UCLA, that was just because that's what I was supposed to do, be good, get good grades, go to good school, get a good job. Right. So that's the path that I was on. But the summer after my freshman year at UCLA, I bought a Mercedes-Benz, a 1990 190E. It was a used car. I bought it for $3,500 at a used car auction. It was the black with the tan interiors, the one you see in the movie Coming to America. And 2 miles after driving it off the lot, it broke down. So it was obviously a European car, and I spent more money to fix it than I did to buy it. So I had the car for about 2 weeks, and I was promoting parties in LA. I was testing the waters of entrepreneurship at the time. My friends and I were promoting parties in LA, and we go to promote one of our parties, which is happening on a Saturday, by passing out flyers at a party that's getting out on Friday. And I pull into this parking lot in South Central. And the moment I do that, two men jump out of the car in front of me with guns drawn. And all of a sudden, I'm staring down the barrel of a gun. So without words being exchanged, the keys were exchanged and the car was gone just like that. I'd only had it for about 2 weeks. And so that was a huge wake-up call for me. And I went through a deep space of introspection. And fortunately, that summer I was an RA, so I had housing and food taken care of. So if those two things weren't in place, my life would have spiraled out of control. So I started asking myself some real serious questions like, why did I buy a Mercedes-Benz? And it was only in hindsight that I could see that Mercedes-Benz was the only car I'd ridden in my entire life, because both my parents had Mercedes-Benz. So it was a subconscious choice to try to prove to my parents that I was on a path to success by getting the things that they got faster than they got them. But that wasn't the best decision for me as an 18-year-old with no real income at the time. Then I had to ask myself, whose definition of success was I living? And of course, I was living out my parents' definition of success. And then the third most important question was, okay, what's my definition of success? And once I realized that my definition of success was different than my parents' definition of success, I was able to step into a more purposeful life. And that's when I started to step into my own, actually become a man, because you can be an adult by age, right? But I don't feel you become a true adult until you make decisions, honestly, that likely deviate from your parents. Now, of course, there's like, oh, your kids should, raise your kids up in a certain way and they will do, I forgot the scripture, because really what that scripture kind of does in many ways is it just perpetuates programming that each generation has had, and the next generation doesn't think anything new, and then they just replicate what the previous generation did. And so I was able to reprogram myself, and thus I'm living a completely different life than my parents. But again, in hindsight, I'm 100% grateful for who they are and what they provided for me. That was perfect for their generation. The programming that they had was perfect for their generation. Go to school, get a good job, and sit on that retirement. That was perfect for them. I just saw things changing, and I chose a different path, and that's why I am where I am today.
Wow, that's deep right there. So where do you go from there? I mean, it's so funny because I had this conversation yesterday on somebody else's podcast, and I started to realize like there's a gap between where I want to go and where my parents would like me to go, which is a good job, the kind of rich dad, poor dad type dichotomy. But what's interesting is you kind of went through the same thing at around the same age, like 19.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you go from there?
Yeah, so I'm actually grateful for that moment now, because it forced me to ask questions that a lot of people don't ask until the midlife crisis, when the kids leave the nest and things of that nature. And so I'm grateful for that moment. So that's when I went through a deep space of spiritual exploration, and really started to try to find out what was my relationship to God. How did I define God? How did I define my spirituality? So, I was reading spiritual texts and devouring them, going to many different services on a Sunday, et cetera, because I was that spiritually hungry, because I wanted to know my purpose. I really wanted to know my purpose. Around that time, Rick Warren's book, The Purpose-Driven Life, or A Purpose-Driven Life, had come out. And so I went through that process as well. And I was just hungry because I wanted to be crystal clear about my purpose, because, we go through life and we check off all these boxes. I was checking off my parents' boxes, but you get to the end of life, you checked off all these boxes, but you failed to do the one thing that you were created to do. Yeah. I was like, nope, I'm not taking that road. So I'm gonna take my time and figure out what my purpose is, why I am here, what is my unique contribution to this world supposed to be. And so that was a very powerful space for me. I graduated from UCLA early in 3 years. I was like, this is for the birds. That's liberal arts education. What I was committed to was liberation arts education. So liberation arts frees you. Liberal arts will put you in debt, right? So I read books like Robert Kiyosaki, The Rich Dad, Poor Dad, As a Man Thinketh, Richest Man in Babylon. I started a financial literacy organization on campus, and we read those books together. We started on-campus businesses together, just to figure out how money is created and how we actually move towards wealth. And so I graduated early. I worked at a nonprofit as a director at a nonprofit based out of UCLA for 2 years. And then I went to business school at Stanford. And the reason I went to business school was I knew I wanted to be in business, but I didn't know the language. I didn't really know the language yet. Even though I was a business econ at UCLA, it taught me economics, but it didn't teach me business, right? It didn't teach me how money was created. You hear people go to undergrad. I was in finance, but they don't know how to structure a finance deal. Yeah, I was in the business school in my undergrad, but I don't know how to start a business. Like, what is it? What are they teaching? And how much are they charging? So it was a lot of self-education, but I ran a nonprofit for 2 years, went to business school at Stanford. And Stanford, what it taught me, I'm very grateful for that space. It taught me, because of who I was surrounded by, my classmates had done amazing things in their lives and have continued to do amazing things. It just taught me to think bigger about who I could be in this world. When I went to Stanford originally, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go here. I'm going to learn business. I'm going to figure out how to create a business that can help my community. And at that time, I defined my community. My heart was really had affinity for young Black males. So I was going to leave Stanford either creating a nonprofit or a business that employed young Black men. Boys becoming men. And I didn't know how that was going to manifest. But when I got there, I realized that my contribution, and I'm still committed to that community, and I serve in many ways to support that directly. But I realized that my presence and my contribution could be a lot larger than just that. And so it really expanded. If I think about what my tuition was really for, it caused me to think bigger about my life and who I was because of who I was surrounded by and what they were doing in the world. You know what I'm saying? Then I went and worked at MLT. I don't know if you know MLT, Management Leadership for Tomorrow. It's a program that helps minority young professionals get into business school or from undergrad get into fast track entry level careers at Fortune 500 companies. So I actually took over created the marketing director position there. They didn't have one. They had just attracted people through word of mouth at that time. But that's really where I started developing my marketing chops a little bit, and studying marketing as I was trying to increase enrollment and applications and enrollment for that organization, which does great work. But I knew it was a bridge job, meaning that I was only going to be there for a short period of time until I was financially stable to step into my purpose. And so I went there with the intention of being there for 18 months. And that's what a bridge job is. It's either you have set a savings goal or a time goal. So I'm going to quit when I hit this savings goal, or when I hit this time goal, whichever one comes first. So I need to get ready. So at the 17-month mark, it was January 2009, bottom of the session. I quit January 9th, 2009. Because my purpose was calling me. I didn't care what the external market was telling me. People were like all this fear, doubt, and worry, and red stock market tickers, this and that. I believe that when you are walking in alignment with your purpose is the one thing that you can never fail at. So why would your creator create for a purpose and then not give you everything that you need to succeed at that? So I stepped out on faith, and here I am 10 years later. This will actually be 11 years in 2 weeks. 11 years later, experiencing more abundance than I could have even imagined on January 9th, 2009. And that's what I believe happens when you fully walk with 100% confidence in your purpose.
I agree. So what does your business look like today? I know you're in multifamily real estate. What does that encompass? What is your business? What does the business of Jullien Gordon look like?
Yeah, so of course there's active income and there's passive income, and you want both to be highly productive. So my active income is when I stepped out into my business, it started out as college speaking. So I was speaking at colleges, orientations, and Black History Months, and professional development trainings. And I still have clients that book me every year. They send a new date, and I send them the same contract, and we're good to go. So from August to November, I still have many clients in that domain that also ended up transitioning to corporate speaking as well. So I have some corporate clients. I've done work with Pepsi, JP Morgan Chase, some accounting firms, real estate companies. So I've done professional development, especially with generational dynamics in the workplace and helping their younger employees find more purpose in the work that they're doing. So there's that. And then I have the Freedom School, which is where I teach my online curriculums on entrepreneurship, digital marketing, subconscious success, mental wealth, and real estate. So those are the primaries. And then my passive, so that's all active. Then my passive is my real estate portfolio, which I've built over the past 6 years. If you take off the first one, which was in Brooklyn in 2013, really the portfolio has expanded significantly over the past 3 years. So right now I have 10 properties with 30 doors. The value of the portfolio is almost at $4 million. And of course, that's not all profit. That's just the value. I have debt associated with all but one of those properties. So that's where the passive comes from. And the passive is really my commitment to make sure that my daughter is straight, and also just to demonstrate for our people that I just can only imagine if my focus at the age of 18 was not go get a good job, if my focus was actually create passive income, like it would have just changed. I would be even further along. But we get so caught up in this, go get the highest paying job. And there's people who have higher paying quote unquote jobs than me, either as employees or even as entrepreneurs, but aren't as free as me. I could stop working right now because my passive income has surpassed my cost of living. But there are people who make a lot more money than me, because they're still trading time for money and their cost of living has risen so drastically to match their income increase, they're not free. And so when I realized that you don't have to be a cash millionaire to be free, then I just focused on creating passive income and managing my living expenses. And I don't live in scarcity. Like, I eat well. I love my home. I'm not cutting coupons or anything like that. But when I realized that you don't have to make tons of money to actually be 100% financially free. That became my focus. And I got there about 3 years ago. I got there where my passive had surpassed, and now my passive is continuing to grow. And that's just really been important for me. When I have all these mortgages paid off, if I hold all these properties for 30 years, my daughter, she's going to have like racks coming in every single month.
Yeah.
The rest of her life. You know what I'm saying? And that is just generational wealth, because as long as we continue to invest in these assets by upkeeping the properties, the roof, the foundation, they will pay our family forever.
Right.
Forever. No job will pay you forever. And so I'm not knocking a job. I just want people to know that they have to have active income, right? Meaning you have to be employed at your highest level of productivity as an employee or entrepreneur. But then you also have to have passive income, right? Meaning that your money has to be employed too. A lot of people have great employment in terms of what they're earning, but their money is unemployed. It's sitting in a savings account earning 0.03%. As your 0.03% using the rule of 72, it's going to take them 2,400 years to double their money in a savings account. 2,400 years? Like, the bank is a heist, and people are getting robbed. And so I'll be honest with you, I don't keep a lot of cash. Anytime cash is the lowest yielding asset in the entire world. So anytime I get cash, I'm like, where can I do this? I do exactly what the bank does. How do I take this cash? Because it's depreciating. The moment as I'm holding it, it is depreciating due to inflation, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to figure out where I can put this cash so that it can be productive. So Benjamin Franklin, he works for me. Anytime I get a Benjamin Franklin, I send him out in the world. I say, go do something productive and bring me back a return, right? Bring me Benjamin Franklins. So for me, security, people have to understand that security doesn't come from having a pile of money. Where real security comes from is actually having a pipeline of money that continues to pour into your family every month, every day. I mean, one of my goals this year was to make money daily. So, just imagine what that would change. There are people who get paid biweekly, and they can say that I'm making money daily. I just get paid biweekly. No, one of my goals was to get paid daily, and I got paid about 300 days out of the year this year. So 2020, I'm going to cross that mark. And that's by having assets that can generate profit every single day. So that's some of my philosophies on.
That's dope.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And I guess the idea of keeping your money employed and also kind of crosses over another principle that you've talked about on your social media is where when you're shopping, you're helping other people profit. So it's like if your money's not working for you, it's actually working for them. It's going to work for somebody.
It's going to work for somebody. It's going to work for somebody. Yeah, man. So we're in the midst of the holiday seasons, and it's just the greatest trap. And they create holidays only to take money out of your pocket. So from January to April, literally January to tax day, April 15th, you're working for the IRS. Literally 1/3 of your money is going to them. So then from there, you are working for your expenses. And if you're lucky, you have some left over in December, which they try to take with a major holiday, right?
Yeah.
They try to take it with a major holiday in December. And then they create all these other holidays in between. If you're going to give a gift that keeps giving, right? Buying toys is tools, not toys. That toy, my daughter plays with the boxes more than she plays with the toy. That's what I learned real quick. So we're investing. We're not expensing things. I will be expensing things for the business so I can get my tax liability down before December 31st. But I'm not buying things in terms of expenses from a personal standpoint. The holidays I can celebrate. These holidays. I look at the spirit of a holiday. So if Thanksgiving is about giving, okay, how do I give? Not give gifts. If December 21st or 25th is about celebrating your creator, or how can you do that without it being tied to spending money, right? I don't think that's what your creator was actually had a vision. I don't think your creator's vision of the birthday, if you are Christian, I don't think that's what the imagery was or the idea was for how to celebrate my birthday.
Right. I feel like it's very interesting that you say that because the goal throughout the whole year is to celebrate something, to enjoy something. But it's like it would kind of be better it seems like what you're saying is instead of spending all your money doing all those things, you could be creating freedom with those resources. So instead of giving it to them to go to work for them, you give it to your family to go to work for your family. And then the celebration looks like, hey, we're free. We don't have to wake up every single day and fight through traffic just so we can.
Oh my goodness, that's a true celebration. That's when we turn up. That's when we turn up, homie. The moment you unplug your wife, the moment you unplug your kids, the moment you unplug your kids, like that's what we turn up on. Like, right. But you know what? You put stuff like that on social media, like people will talk about their turned up birthday party in Vegas and get all these likes. But then you put a post about acquiring a fiveplex. And people be like, crickets. It's just like what we celebrate is so off, man. It's so off. But I think people who are operating in the other paradigm, they don't know what freedom really looks like and feels like. When Harriet Tubman, this is my ancestor spirit, that's who I look to from guidance. When she crossed the Mason-Dixon line, she was excited, but then she realized that she was alone, right? And she wanted to free those around her, the people that she loves. So she went back for her brother. She went back for her parents. She went back for her husband. Her husband has remarried. And so she just ended up starting to take other people. And so she made 19 trips below the Mason-Dixon line over the course of a decade, freeing 300 people. And when you get free and you feel what it actually means to be free, because it's a feeling like no other, and people can't tell you anything. You can be 100% yourself. You want others to experience that. And so that's really what my commitment has been. And the thing that freed me, one of the things that freed me, of course, you need your skill sets, right? But the other thing that freed me in terms of passive was real estate. And my first purchase in Brooklyn in 2013, when I bought that 3-family there, the moment I purchased that, I achieved rent and mortgage freedom, meaning that I've not paid a housing expense since 2013 because the rents from that particular purchase covered the mortgage and some, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine not having to pay a housing expense. I'm not just talking about rent or mortgage. I'm talking about utilities, insurance, taxes. Imagine that being paid by someone else forever. Right. That breathing room that created for me as I was navigating my purpose and trying to walk in my purpose created so much room for me to not have fear, not to create out of scarcity, and to really get in alignment with what my creator wanted me to do. And so this is why I've been so committed to the multifamily movement, because I want people to get to rent and mortgage freedom, because I just know, even though that's not full freedom, I know what kind of breathing room that's going to create for them to step into their authentic self and why they're really here. So that's what I've been teaching. I have hundreds and hundreds of students going through that process. People are closing on homes that are getting them to rent and mortgage freedom. And it's just so twisted because the American dream says buy the single family home first, right? And then people are like, oh, I'm going to go get my single family home because I've been watching HGTV, this and that. And then I'm going to go try to invest. And then they're trying to put 25% down on a $800,000 home. Who's got $200,000 just sitting around? But if you did it the other way and you leverage FHA at 3.5% on the $800,000 fourplex, and then you decided to buy your single family at literally 10% down because you can get conventional because the bank will understand that story, you could get to freedom a lot easier, just a lot easier. Like I knew that first home in Brooklyn was not my dream home, but it made my dreams possible.
Yes.
It was not my dream
home. That's actually a dream home. If we're keeping it out. It
didn't have granite countertops. It didn't have stainless steel appliances. It didn't have none of that. But I knew how important this investment was for my freedom. And so it's just, we've been taught backwards. If you just simply change the sequence. And literally with FHA, you only have to live in it for 1 year. Yeah. Like that's not a huge sacrifice.
Right.
You could just change the sequence. You could have a lot more of what you want. But the programming of the American dream is so real. Oh no, I want to own my home, this and that. I want my hear me out on this. There's people who pay rent, right? If you could literally, let's say rent was $1,000. If you could literally, instead of paying somebody else $1,000 a month, get to rent and mortgage freedom and invest that $1,000 at 5% for 40 years, you would have $1.5 million. And 5%, is conservative. It's very conservative. You would have $1.5 million after 40 years if you could invest that $1,000 instead of giving it to somebody else. You've actually passed on wealth to somebody else, somebody else's family. So we, it's just backwards, and I just believe that this is a powerful way for us to get to freedom.
because it's like you said, you're passing wealth into the other person's family. So that 1.5 goes backwards. You gave them 1.5. If it's not working for you, it's working for somebody.
Facts.
So crazy. When you say about the programming, you tell people what we've been taught to do, American dream, go to college. That's where the Harriet Tubman thing kind of spoke to me. Like, I heard you speak about, like, you see yourself as Harriet Tubman, and I didn't make that connection until I kept seeing, like, all the things that refer to slavery. Like, I'm not sure if you know John Johnson, but he puts out that post where he says, like, back in the day, you would work for free, and then you get free housing, you get free food, you get free all that stuff. Now you go to work, but you pay for your housing, you pay for your food, you pay for your clothes.
Yeah.
So he always reiterates that point. But then I hear you talk about Harriet Tubman, and that's where I started to see, like, dang, like, you really are Harriet in that sense, because folks legit are slaves.
Yeah.
They do what the media tells them to do. They buy what the media tells them to buy. It's really interesting.
Yeah, man. It's mental slavery. It's modern day slavery is mental, right? Old slavery was actually physical. Today is mental. And a lot of it is just our belief systems are off. So a lot of people think a high salary is great. And a high salary can be great if you were very strategic. Otherwise, a salary can be slavery.
Yeah.
Because now the moment you get on salary, you're off of getting paid by the hour, right? And now all of a sudden they want you to work 50 hours or 60 or 70 or 80. And when you take your salary and you divide it by 80 hours a week, you realize that, dang, I'm only making $30 an hour. And then taxes are going to take, what, 7 or 8 of that. Now you're down to 22. Then you got your living expenses. So a salary can actually be slavery. We also got all these other things that we've been taught incorrectly. It's literally the opposite. You hear that cash is king. No, cash is not king. It might sound cool. It might have some alliteration, but cash is actually pawn. Assets are the queen and cash flow is king. Right. But we just run around with all these quotes and things of that nature. These are programs that have literally been installed in our operating system. Our mind is actually running off of these programs that are not producing or creating the life that we truly desire. Yeah. And so, yeah, man.
Even like cash rules everything around me. Like, no, it doesn't really rule everything around you.
No, it does not. It does not. Yeah. It was dope when Wu-Tang said it. It was dope, right? Because it was what? Their acronym for cream, right? That was an acronym. It sounded cool in that context. But when you actually apply that to financial life, credit is actually going to do more for you than cash.
Right. That's crazy. So let's talk about that first deal, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Did you live in the city? Were you working in the city? You decided to buy in the city, or?
Yeah, I was living there. I was renting. And here's what's beautiful. There are deals literally right around you. There's deals in, they say in your backyard. Literally, I was renting on Fulton Street on, actually they renamed Fulton Harriet and Utica Malcolm X. So I was living at the corner of Malcolm X and Harriet, right? So I was going to the post office one day and I saw some balloons on the corner. And I walk around the corner, and literally the home that I bought shares a backyard with the apartment that I was renting. I can see the home that I bought from the second floor apartment I was renting. Like, my home was right there. So, Brooklyn is crazy. I was on Utica, on that side of Utica, on the right side of Utica, further from the city. That was considered, it's getting a little bit hood. But I could see that the change was coming. And, I got 30 signs of gentrification that I look for whenever I'm going into a new market. And this one checked off all the boxes. And I happened to be right. So I bought that with 3.5% down. And literally in 2012, I had only made $35,000. So a lot of people say, oh, I can't get into real estate. I don't make enough money. But with FHA, right, and the fact that they apply 75% of rent to your income. So I was making I only made 35 in 2012, but then when they looked at the rent that was going to be coming in from the other 2 units, which was going to be $4,000, they added $3,000 a month or additional $36,000 to my income to qualify me for the loan.
Yep.
And so now I was able to get into that home, immediately achieve rent and mortgage freedom. And that's where it all started. And at that time, Airbnb was straight in New York, and Airbnb actually gave me more than $2,000 a month in cash flow. So, tourists are always coming to New York, et cetera. Absolutely. So then I was looking for more in Brooklyn, but at $1 million, 25% down was going to be $250,000. And I was making good money, but I wasn't making enough to stack $250,000 for a down payment. Right, plus closing costs, plus fixes. That's going to be $325,000 out the pocket. I didn't have that, so I realized quickly that I was going to. I realized slowly. because it took me 4 years to get the next property, which I'm in right now. I realized I was going to have to find a new market. Mm-hmm. And so I really encourage people to try to invest, one, where you live, two, if that doesn't work, where you're from, and then three, if that doesn't work, where you want to be a contribution, and then four, if that doesn't work, just go invest in the most opportunistic space that you can invest in. So for me,
that's what I did. I did this.
You did too?
I looked at home, and I was like, all right, that's not going to work. Where I'm from, and I was like, okay, well, maybe not there either.
Yeah.
And I started looking at where the numbers made sense, or where I could be a contribution. That's key.
Exactly. So I was living in Brooklyn, so I bought in Brooklyn, and then I bought in New Orleans. That's this is a city that I want to be a contribution to. For me, this is the last Black cultural hub that we have in the United States. Then invest where I'm from. I have a property in Oakland, and then I haven't done any just purely opportunistic investing at this point in time. So so I found this property in New Orleans. I had a friend who was a realtor down here. He found it as an off-market deal. He knew that I wanted to invest elsewhere beyond Brooklyn. He found an off-market deal, and I was able to grab it. It never hit MLS or anything like that. This is what I'm living in now. And then I bought 2 more properties in New Orleans because the numbers made sense here. In real estate, multifamily real estate investing, you have to meet the 1% rule, meaning that rents have to be at least 1% of the price. If rents are not 1% of the price, then it's likely not going to cash flow. It still may be an asset that can appreciate, but it's not going to cash flow. You're still going to be coming out of pocket every single month. This is why investing in Oakland or New York right now, in major markets, many of them aren't meeting the 1% rule. So you're not going to get the biggest bang for your buck unless those properties happen to appreciate. Okay. So I bought a couple more properties from Brooklyn in New Orleans. And then I realized, you know what? Brooklyn is for the birds. Brooklyn was great for a stage of my life, but I realized a lot of my friends were going to end up broke and poor in Brooklyn. They'd be making 100, 150, but because New York is just seeking to take your money on the way in and on the way out, you're going to just be in a constant rat race here, and you're never going to own. So I was like, I'm not going to wait for y'all. I'm out. And so literally last year, I bounced, and that once I hit the ground in New Orleans, and I was actually able to be here to see properties and see the markets and find neighborhoods. I've literally been on a tear, and this year alone, I've acquired 7 properties since I've been on the ground here.
Wow. So did you find that your New York money allowed you to do more in Louisiana? And
man, yo, when you look at New York prices and then you come here, you feel like you on the clearance rack at Ross. Like you're not just at Ross, you on the clearance rack at Ross. That's what it feels like, honestly. And this is part of the issue with some people call it gentrification. I call it colonization. Okay, colonization was people come in and they try to displace the existing community and the natives there. Gentrification is actually a good thing. Gentrification is the upliftment of a community. If an all-Black community decides to all repaint the front of their homes and plant gardens, that's going to gentrify the community, even though they're all Black owners, right? So gentrification, that word's got co-opted. It's actually colonization. But what happens for communities like New Orleans is that the people who are from here, and this happens anywhere you are. Even when I was in New York, I didn't fully appreciate New York. When you live somewhere, you don't fully appreciate it because you're like, oh, it's just here. Like I didn't go to the Statue of Liberty. But when tourists were coming for Airbnb, they were hitting up more spots in New York than I had hit up living there. Yeah. So when you actually live somewhere, you don't fully appreciate it. And it's not until you don't fully appreciate it. And then what happens is outsiders see the value. That's my doorbell. Outsiders see the value of it. And then they come in and they start buying up what you didn't appreciate. Just a second.
Yep.
I don't know who that is. Can you pause the recording real quick?
Yep. I got you.
Okay. 5, 4, 3.
Yep.
All right.
We're back. So we're talking about the opportunities in your backyard or opportunities where you live that you kind of look over and take for granted.
Yeah, so that was that. So I was so committed. I was so done with New York because I wanted to be a real estate investor. I didn't just want to own one property and call it a day. I wanted to be a real estate investor. So my identity had changed. After I had a property on the East Coast, on the West Coast, and the Gulf Coast, my identity changed to not just being a home buyer. My identity changed that I am a real estate investor. When your identity changes, your behavior changes. And so I was willing to pack up everything in New York and go to a place that actually made sense. And I actually love this city. I moved here not just for the real estate investing. I love the culture. I love the people. I love the pace. I love the affordability. I love the food. I mean, this place is absolutely beautiful. And I fell in love with it before I even moved here. And so it made sense for me to move at that time.
Yeah. There's a lot of good cities in America that aren't just like the obvious hotspots.
Right.
You don't have to be in LA or New York or Miami to enjoy a lot of the really cool things that are out there in the United States.
Yeah, 100%. There's 130 festivals in New Orleans every single year. There was a mac and cheese festival, crawfish festival, oyster festival. They create festivals for everything, and it's a place that people come to all the time. So I still see all my friends because they always come in here for Essence Fest and Jazz Fest, and so I still see everybody.
Yep. So I want to talk to you, and it's a post that I saw, and it's something I I definitely agree with, but it's interesting because I guess I'll phrase the question as this: is you talk about ethical investing. A lot of people think that ethical investing can't be profitable investing.
Facts.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, man. So I can't put money over people. And when it comes to real estate, there are people, even of our own skin color and people who are not, who will literally tell you, come get this real estate, just go in there and just bump the rents up and without caring about who was actually living there. And for me, that's not how I move. And so I have some core principles in terms of ethical investing, and it's really about not colonizing a community, because I recognize that I am not from New Orleans. Do I want New Orleans to embrace me over time? Yes, but I'm not from here. So Oakland doesn't feel like home either, and Brooklyn was not home either. So honestly, anywhere I choose to live, I was going to be an outsider coming in, right? Anywhere I choose, because Oakland doesn't feel like home, even though I'm from there. I'm not from here, and I'm not from Brooklyn. So anywhere I landed I was gonna be an outsider coming in. So I want to make sure if I'm an outsider coming in that I'm doing it in a way that's righteous. So for me, the principles of ethical investing mean, not putting profits over people, right? That you shouldn't raise rents just because you desire to raise rents. You can raise the rents according to inflation. That's how I sleep at night. I do raise rents, but I raise them according to the consumer pricing index because my expenses are going up and my taxes are going up every single year. So I have to raise rents to accommodate for that, right? And I also need to exit. In Oakland right now, what's happening is that owners didn't increase rents for the past 10 years. Then these tenant-friendly laws came in that are rent control laws. And now these owners can't sell the property, right? Because the rents are locked in so low, and the owners don't have enough money to reinvest in the property. So now the roof is leaking, et cetera. And tenants are complaining, but the reality is that I don't have enough income to actually reinvest in the property to make sure I can fix all these things for you. Yeah. So this is why I have to address this, because people who are on the tenant side don't understand why rents get raised sometimes, but they have to get raised from inflation. And if I increase more value for you by providing Wi-Fi, by providing parking, by repainting, et cetera, then that warrants a rent increase. The other thing is this ethical investing framework is anti-slumlord, because there's a lot of slumlords who own in our communities and they don't care about the people. Mm-hmm. So this means that you respond in 24 hours and you try to have the fixes done within 5 business days. Not every fix can happen in 24 hours. You might have to order a part for an air conditioning unit, et cetera, but you want to try to get that fix done in 5 days. Slumlords, they'll let it drag out and pretend like they didn't get your first message. And then finally, you're just not trying to intentionally displace people. So for me, I work with my tenants creatively. So one of my tenants, they were coming up short on a couple months, but they have gardening skills. So I had them go do the gardening for 3 of my properties to make up for the fact that to decrease their rent, right? Another one of my tenants, they paying in bulk at the first of the month actually puts them in a financial squeeze for the first 2 weeks of the month till they get paid again. So we changed their payments to bi-monthly. I pay my mortgage bi-monthly. I'm on the buy-saver program for my mortgages. So I was like, okay, let's just do it bi-monthly, because that's going to create less stress for you. Right. So I work with my tenants. Some of my tenants don't get paid till the 6th of the month. And so guess what? We have an arrangement and agreement to pay 6th of the month. And if you don't pay on the 6th or 7th, then there will be late fees. Mm-hmm. So I work with my tenants because my goal is not to displace people. It's actually to provide quality housing, affordable housing for folks. I'm not in the high-end housing. I'm providing quality, affordable housing for folks. About 25% of my portfolio is Section 8 tenants, and I want them to have a great experience. Just because they're Section 8 doesn't mean they're bad people. Some people fall on hard times and have situations happen, and I have some great Section 8 tenants. So anybody who has myths about what it means to have a Section 8 tenant, it all depends on your selection process. You choose who you allow into your space, okay? And if you chose a Section 8 tenant just because they had a voucher, but you didn't vet them as an individual or as a family, then that's on you. Your selection process when you're choosing tenants, that's all on you, nobody else.
Right. What's interesting about what the whole concept of ethical investing is, sometimes people get into the real estate investing space and landlords investing space, and their goal is to treat people how they've been treated as a tenant. And it's like they want to be like white people. Like, I want to be white people, and I want to, like, no, it's late fee. No, you can't pay. You got to go. And what I found is, like, I guess when you're on the ground and you own the property and you're doing the day-to-day management, you realize they're real people, that you kind of want to work with them too. Because I do the same thing. We still get our money, but it's more of a partnership and less of a, this is me, Mr. Big Landlord, and that's you, little peasant tenant. So you got to do what I say.
Yep. I mean, your asset, the asset does not produce without tenants. So tenants are actually your other asset. You could have a multi-family, I could have a 4-family home, but if there's no tenants in there, then that asset is not producing. So my tenants are the other half of the asset.
100%.
So I need to treat them as such. And my tenants love me. My tenants love me. There's people who don't want to associate with their tenants. They don't want to connect with them. Usually those are people from other communities. My tenants know me. They love me. And they're happy to be my tenants. They know that I take care of them. One woman chose me because over a place that was a little bit less, because she knew how I was treating her during the interviewing process. She chose me, even though my rents were a little bit more and the distance was a little bit further, because of how I was treating her.
Yeah. So what would you say was your most successful real estate deal?
The first one, of course, because you get the most leverage, and it was in New York. That was definitely the first one. But this is going to be counterintuitive. This one's not it's not most financially successful, but it's when I bought my mom a house here in New Orleans. So my mom was having challenges. I told you she was a doctor, but this is the problem with middle class, is she ended up having some mental health challenges. And those mental health challenges impacted her career. And once her career got impacted, it impacted her money. And she lost the home that I grew up in Oakland. And she's been struggling a little bit, you know? So she was on fixed income in the Bay Area. And so once I moved to New Orleans, I bought her a home here. And she lives in one side. It's at one side. And then the tenant on the other side pays pretty much most of the mortgage. So my mom is actually living rent free now as a result of this choice that I made. And this, the house that we lost in Oakland is worth $1.8 million today. That's generational wealth is gonna be transferred to somebody else. But you know what? And the house that I bought my mom here is not a mansion, right? I still felt like a rapper though when I bought my mom my house though. But you know what my mom calls that place? Even though it's just a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, she calls it her castle. Because that's all she really needs at this stage of life. So for me, that was the most fruitful and powerful investment that I made. But I've had some other great deals, which is a lot of people are doing the BRRRR strategy on single family homes, which is great. I'm not really interested in single family homes. I executed a pretty good BRRRR, not a perfect BRRRR, meaning that I didn't get all my money out, but I've executed a pretty good BRRRR on a 4-plex here in New Orleans. Meaning that my down payment, my money that's left in the deal is equivalent to maybe a 10% down payment, and the property still cash flows at a great level, and almost everything has been updated. So a lot of people do BRRRRs on single families. I was able to execute a BRRRR on a pretty good BRRRR on a multifamily, which not a lot of people do.
So how did you find that deal?
Yeah, so that deal that deal did hit MLS. They had 2 showings. They underpriced it. It was a Shark Tank in there. And the moment I saw that deal, actually a business partner and I, we made it a cash offer that day. So the clock started ticking. And the reason I was able to see that deal is because I missed a deal similar to it near me, right around the corner. There was a 4-plex right around the corner that I couldn't see because I hadn't trained my real estate eyes in that way yet. But then after they had acquired it and done the renovations, I ran the numbers. I saw what they were charging for rent. I saw what they paid for it. I estimated what they put into it. And I realized that that was a gold mine. So sometimes when you miss a deal, it sharpens your eyes to be able to see the next one that's just like it. So I missed this deal. So the moment that this other deal came up, same structure, 4-plex, et cetera, actually in equivalent, almost exact same type of neighborhood, I moved without thinking. right? For me, real estate is not an emotional thing. It's all economics. And I knew how the economics were going to play out. So that's how I moved on this deal, even though it was a Shark Tank. And what was beautiful was it was, you don't meet the seller, but we got to the closing room and there was a black family passing this asset on to another black family.
That's dope, man. I like it. How did you finance that?
That was cash. Cash to finance it and cash to do the renovations. Could have got a hard money loan, but we felt that the cash offer was going to get accepted a lot quicker than trying to go get financing. And then we're going to cash out on that. We're going to cash out on that at the end of January. So you have to hold for 6 months before you can do a refinance. Right. So that refinance will take place in January, get all the cash back, and you put that cash back out to play. So I couldn't have financed that deal on my own. My homegirl, she had a great exit from a company that she had been a huge contribution to. So we put our resources together and our minds together, and we moved aggressively on it. And we're excited about this deal. We're excited about this neighborhood. We're excited about the property. It's fully occupied now already. So it's like 3 months of renovation and then and fully occupied now at great rents. So we're excited.
What would you say was your most difficult deal?
Most difficult deal. Let me look at the. I need to look at them real quick. Most difficult deal. Man, honestly, none is coming to mind because you know what? I've gotten better and better and better and sharper and sharper and sharper with every single deal that I do. Yeah, and my returns, and I know that because my cash on cash return for every deal it just keeps going up, right? Because my eyes, I've talked about training your 4 eyes of real estate: eyes for the market, eyes for the neighborhood, eyes for the property, and eyes for the deal. So my eyes keep getting better and better. The one that is the most challenging though is probably the one in Oakland, because of rent control. There is a tenant there when we acquired the property that is locked in at a pretty low rate. And it's hurting our cash flow a little bit. We have the other side rented at full market rate. And just when you are in a tenant-friendly city, I'm glad that cities are tenant-friendly, but when you are investing in a tenant-friendly city, it makes it very difficult to make that asset perform. And really all you can do is cross your fingers and hope that that person leaves in some cases, or you can increase rents according to the consumer pricing index, which we did initially, but that still wasn't a huge jump from as low as they were when we bought the property. So we've considered selling that one because I just know that my money can work harder in other places. But at that point, it felt important for me to own a piece of Oakland before Oakland got away from us. But that nostalgia has passed, and I just know I can go create new nostalgic moments by investing that money at a higher capacity somewhere else.
Right.
You know?
Right. So where are you going next? What's the 5-year plan look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've been contemplating that as we move towards the end of the year, figuring out what I want and what I want to manifest in 2020. And as you say, 2025. It's a couple directions are at play. One is a fund to help people invest their unemployed money through me and my awareness of what's going on here and in other markets, perhaps in a larger building, 40 unit to 100 unit type building. So that's at play. I also, like I told you, I have a heart for Black men. And I've noticed that all my contractors who are here, who are Black men, they have no marketing skills. And so I potentially see an opportunity to create a unified company that gets them more business. They're great at what they do. They're skilled craftsmen. You may have even seen the picture on my Instagram of like 7 of us, like all Black men working on this property that I acquired. It's like that moment brought me so much joy. But their calendars should be filled up. And I think there might be a way to aggregate all of us into service, because I have a real estate Rolodex of contractors in every single domain, 60 different types of contractors that you need to preserve a property. So that's a possibility. But right now, to be honest, nothing is concrete. I'm still open and I'm listening. I'm waiting for that divine download. And once I get it, I'll put the stake in the ground and then I'll go for it. But I'm not 100% confident in what that message is and that direction is yet.
What keeps you motivated? What keeps you going?
Harriet, she never stopped. She never stopped till the day she died, man. She never stopped. Even after the Underground Railroad was done, she was working in the Union Army and starting homes for the elderly. She just never stopped. And so when I think about, to me, she's the most powerful woman to ever walk the face of this earth. I don't care about Cleopatra. I don't care about none of that. Harriet Tubman is the most courageous, powerful woman to ever walk the face of this earth. And so when I just look at her and knowing what she went through, that's what inspires me to keep going. Then there's my daughter. There's my daughter. I want her to have the most free life that she possibly have. I have no clue what she's going to be and who she's going to become, but I want to create the conditions for her to be whatever she desires to be. And cash flow is part of that. But then I'm also doing my best to shape her mind, but not program her in such a way where she thinks just like me. Right. But that she is able to think for herself. So those two women inspire me. And then, of course, there's my mom. There's my mom. So that's what keeps me going, man. I just know that I was created for a reason. Our life is just like a blip in the spectrum of time. And I just want to make as big of a bang as possible while I'm here, whether that's for 5 more days, whether that's for 50 more years. I just want to make as big of a bang as I possibly can while I'm here. And for me, what my fantasy, and I use that word intentionally, a lot of people think of it sexually, but I just use it to transmit desire. My biggest fantasy is to, at the end of my life, know that there are 100,000 multifamily home buyers because of what I've put out in the world. People who feel freer, have what I call degrees of freedom, more degrees of freedom because of the information that I was able to put out into the world. So that's what I'm focused on right now. In 2020, I want 365 multifamily home buyers. People have started going through my curriculum because I just started teaching it in July. People started going through my curriculum and people are purchasing, but purchasing a multifamily home, it takes some time. You have to you have to go through the curriculum, then you have to be out there looking for the right deal. And so I just know that more people are going to manifest the right deal in 2020. So if I can get to 365, which is one person a day, that would be absolutely amazing.
Where can you get access to your curriculum?
Yeah, so the best place to go is multifamilymasterplan.com. Multifamilymasterplan.com. That's where I do a free webinar periodically to share my knowledge about multifamily real estate. And then from there, if people are interested, they can choose to just take that information and run with it, or they can choose to accelerate the process and work with me through the multifamily mastermind movement. So that's the best place to start.
So I usually have a question at the end, and it says, who is somebody that you look up to and why? I think we covered that.
Oh, yes. Miss Tubman. Miss Tubman. That's yeah. I just got this as a gift to myself and a reminder. Let me see. Can you see it? Can you see it? There's a Black company called Soweti Siam that designed it, and this is Harriet on here. So yeah. So that's just my reminder piece, man.
What is your favorite business or real estate book?
My favorite business or real estate book, the one that really changed my life and had me think bigger was Built to Last and Success Built to Last. Built to Last and Success Built to Last. Built to Last is about building a successful business that has longevity, and Success Built to Last is about what is required to be a successful business person. So I read those when I was at Stanford. Jerry Porras, who is a co-author on Success Built to Last, was a professor there. And so that's one of my favorite business books. There's also Mastering the Rockefeller Habits is another great one in terms of business books. And then in terms of personal books, The Alchemist, the Bible, and The Alchemist, the Bible, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and The Perfect Power Within You are some of my favorite personal books that I've read multiple times.
Thanks. A lot of people say that they like that part of the show. They like when we talk about books. So that's cool. You gave us more than just the Rich Dad.
Yeah, but I just want people to go through knowledge consumption, right? Listen to the podcast, go through your podcast mode, but then go execute. Like go integrate because if you just stay in knowledge consumption, like I go through seasons. I'm doing deep study, then I'm going to apply. Then deep study and apply. Some people just stay in knowledge consumption forever and they never take action. So I just want people to be mindful and try to create a period. I'm going to learn this specific knowledge, and then I'm going to apply this specific knowledge. I'm going to learn this. Don't just be in knowledge consumption for the sake of knowledge consumption and never taking action, because then that's not what the podcast is for. You don't care about how many listeners you have. You care about how many people have actually taken action and changed their lives as a result of listening to you, right? I don't care how many students are in the Freedom School. I care how many people actually have results as a result because they were a student in the Freedom School. That's what moves me. That's what moves the needle. So just be mindful, y'all. This year actually was a year of not so much reading for me. This year was actually a year of 100% implementation. I read fewer books this year than any year of my life because I wanted to be in action this year, but I'm going back into a cycle of study.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast, and he was talking about how they went to this football game, and after the football game, all the Raider fans were like, "Yeah, we won," and they were exerting all this energy into somebody else's success. And sometimes the same thing on a podcast is we can listen to other people doing great stuff or scroll people doing great things on Instagram, but it's up to you to go out there and create your own greatness. Use that same energy that you use for rooting for other people to create some tangible success in your own life.
100%. Jesus said, you will do even greater things than these. And I think that's your and my goal, is for people to be inspired by this and actually do even greater things than we did, because we paved the way in their mind and actually in life. So 100% celebrate. Don't hate. Definitely don't hate. Celebrate when you see somebody doing something that you want to do, because when you celebrate it, it's only going to bring that vibration back to you.
Yep. What do you think sets apart successful investors from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
Successful investors. Just weathering the L's. I've taken L's, not in real estate. I've never taken an L in real estate, but I've taken L's in other types of investments, cryptocurrency, things of that nature, and just weathering the L's and not dwelling on them. Okay, you lost some money. Money comes and goes, it's paper, and you go get some more and you go do it again. Don't just stop because you had one bad deal or a couple bad deals. It's about failing, and the person who fails the fastest and fails the most is the one who wins. When you look at the way venture capital works, right? Venture capitalists, they dump this amount of money into 100 companies, and 99 of them fail, and one becomes Facebook or Uber, et cetera. You look at pharmaceuticals, they dump all this money into 100 different potential products, and then one of them becomes Tylenol. Once they get a Tylenol, once they get a Facebook, do you think they care about the other 99? They don't even remember the other 99. So it's about failing as fast as you can to get to the success.
Right.
When you found your wife, you might have failed many different times, but once you found your wife, you ain't think about them other chicks.
Right.
You feel me? So that it's fail fast, and get back up and get out there.
So what does wealth mean to you?
Wealth means freedom. They're synonymous to me. But so for me, there's financial wealth and there's mental wealth. Because there's people who have financial wealth, but they don't have mental wealth. They ain't happy. They don't like their life. They got challenges. So for me, wealth is being able to be who you truly are at all times without worry. A lot of the worry that we have in our lives comes from finances. So this is where financial freedom is part of the equation. But at the end of the day, I want people to be as happy as they possibly can be. And for me, actually, I don't even pursue happiness. I pursue joy. Happiness tends to be based on what happens. Happiness is based on what happens. And you can't always control what happens, but you can control your inner state, which is joy. And so I want people to have as much joy as possible. That's what wealth really means for me. So when I say wishing you wealth, WELL-TH, it's not just money. I wish you like wellness, so that's how I think about it.
Dope. Last question is, where can people find out more about you? Where can they follow you, and where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so it's Jullien Gordon on Instagram, Jullien, 2 L's with the E-N, Jullien Gordon, Gordon. That's where I produce most of my content, is on Instagram. And then again, the webinar that I do periodically is at multifamilymasterplan.com.
Nice. Thank you for coming on the show. There's so much. It's much more than a one hour episode, but I want to make sure we got a chance to touch on different things. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story with the listeners. I know they get a lot out of it, and I know they'll reach out to you and talk to you about what they learned. So hopefully you guys check out that multifamily his
Master
program that
plan.
he has,
Yep.
multifamily master plan. You got to reprogram how we're thinking and start flipping the script and make it work to our advantage. Thank you guys all for tuning in this episode 131. Charles Oglesby, also known as Top Millionaire. Find us on oglesbyholdings.co or gumroad.com/Todd Capital on Instagram. You guys know the usernames. Episode 131, signing off.
In the books. Peace.